In this guide, we are going to comprehensively test all of the abilities of the new Archelon creature in Ark Survival Ascended. We're going to take a look at its attacks. We're going to research the effects of the algae and the sushi that it can produce. We're going to take it to some boss fights and see if it's a good soaker or not. So let's get to it. The Archelon is a passive tame, and if you're looking for a taming guide, check the description as I'll put a link to my guide right there. In terms of attacks, the Archelon is quite weak. It really only has one primary attack, and as you can see, when we hit this shark, we're hitting for about 100, as low as 63 now that it's got a friend. So it's not a super strong mount. Bites with it will be quite slow. You'll tank quite a bit of damage, but you'll eventually be able to pick off a small pack of sharks, but maybe not one with a bunch of really high levels or an alpha. There is no secondary or tertiary attack. The one benefit that Archelons have is that they do extra damage to Cnidaria, the jellyfish. They are immune to the jellyfish stings, and you can see here that we do massive amounts of damage to jellyfish. And in the top right corner, you'll see a little biotoxin with a number, and our Archelon is starting to get a glowy dust over it. This means that we now have a damage and damage resistance buff. If we take a closer look at this buff, you will see that outgoing damage is increased by 150%, and incoming damage is reduced by 25%. I couldn't find too many creatures to attack after getting the buff, but you can see here we got a few hits on this anglerfish and our damage has increased to around 250. So really good damage when you have it. It lasts for about 1 minute. In terms of controls, when you first get the Archelon in the water, it tends to glide on top. On keyboard, you actually have to hit the tertiary key, the C key, in order to be able to get it to dive, and you kind of have to hold the C key down. It's the same on a controller. You need to click the stick and hold it down in order to get the Archelon to dive. If you want it to ascend in the water, hold down spacebar or your jump key on the controller. Underwater on an Archelon, you will attract a lot of enemies. The one nice thing about them is they are actually quite fast swimmers, so even if you have a bunch of sharks after you, you can sprint and swim really quickly and you will gain distance. You will be able to get away from them. The Archelon on land is incredibly slow. One thing I seem to notice is that none of the land dwelling creatures tended to aggro towards me. I'm right next to this raptor and it is not interested in attacking me. Once I dismounted from the saddle though, the raptor came over and we were able to fight it. We do a similar amount of damage, around 100 per hit. Again, another slow fight, but we were eventually able to take out the raptor. I tested a bunch of food in the inventory of the Archelon and I found that it will eat berries, but it won't eat fish or meat. So it does seem to be a pure herbivore. This is great to know because this means that we can now use sweet veggie cakes to heal it rapidly. The limitation of the turtle is that it can't seem to use its primary attack on land, so I couldn't harvest these berry bushes to feed my own turtle. Another thing I needed to test was, can an Archelon be grabbed by a Tuso, and if it can be grabbed, is it a good option for taming? Traditionally, a lot of players use the OG turtle in the game, the Carbonemus, but these, while really tanky, are incredibly slow. The Archelon is fast as well as tanky, so let's see how it goes. Yep, okay, you can get grabbed. You can see here I am still not using my oxygen tank, but I have enough reserve oxygen to get a feed in. And just remember to swim straight up, that way you cannot be grabbed by the Tuso, as they have a minimum depth that they go up to. Make sure you're wearing flippers so you swim faster, and at this point you will probably need to put a oxygen tank on just for backup and safety. While grabbed, your Archelon is going to take a beating from the Tuso tentacle damage. Don't do what I did and have it on neutral, because mine started to fight the Tuso back. Make sure it is on passive and following so that you can get it back to right again for a second feeding of the Tuso. My Archelon lost about a third of its health. We made sure we had some berries in there to heal it up between feeds. This is a really great case of where having a sweet veggie cake may be really useful. After waiting some time, my Archelon was still about 2/3 of its health. The feeding was super smooth and we were able to tame it, and so I highly recommend using an Archelon for Tuso taming. The Archelon saddle is crafted in the smithy. It takes quite a bit of wood and a small amount of metal. And you'll see that the saddle is equipped with tanks. When you're in the saddle, it means that you will get supplied with oxygen. You get a bubble of oxygen for all of the riders, and you won't need your own scuba tank. The Archelon can seat 5 people, the rider, which is in a lying down position, and then 4 passenger seats, each with their own oxygen tanks, meaning that everyone riding the Archelon won't need a scuba tank to breathe underwater. You can see here that my character has no scuba tank, we just have the pants and some gloves, and when we dive into the water, you will see that we are not losing any oxygen. If we show the player buffs, it says the Archelon air bubbles, you gain oxygen when near a saddled Archelon. You don't need to be technically riding the Archelon to get the oxygen buff, you just have to be near it. As you can see, I dismount and I've still got the oxygen buff. But what is the experience of riding the Archelon as a passenger? Well, let me show you. One thing we noticed as a group is if public seating was not enabled, players were able to mount the Archelon, but as soon as they did, their game crashed and they just passed out on top of it. So if you are going to host passengers on your Archelon, make sure you enable public seating. You can see here that there are 4 seat options for your passengers, and they can select a free one. They are grayed out when they are not available. You can see here that I am in left 2, so I am at the back. While you are seated, you can hold a weapon, which is really helpful. Just to confirm that as a passenger, you still get the same oxygen buff, so you do not require scuba. The view on the back is a little disconcerting as a passenger. It's hard to see what is ahead. Just like all other passenger mounts in the game, such as a rock drake, you are very vulnerable to taking damage when you are a passenger. You can see that I died pretty quickly here. Damn!
Oh, I'm almost half dead.
If you watch the official trailer for the Archelon, you'll see that they got a bunch of people and they went down into the artifact of the Brute Cave and they managed to easily get it, bring it home, and celebrations were had. And my friends and I wanted to test what the Archelon would be like as an actual cave mount. So we wanted to test if the trailer matched reality. Well, you should pause and get your shooters to shoot them. Get the turrets going.
Okay, alright.
Okay, hold up.
There's X-Fish. Yeah,
up.
there's X-Fish.
Donde?
Oh, below us.
Yeah.
Are we shooting them?
I can't
That's
think
gonna
I'm
get
in the
past them.
saddle
I'll try,
again.
yep. Okay, so I can
Oh.
shoot through the turtle.
I can't backwards. I can't go backwards.
Oh, no, I'm
Nope,
dead.
I'm almost dead. I'm dead.
So the passengers died pretty much immediately, but what about the driver? Now I have an Xbox recording of my husband, which proves that he didn't last much longer.
I can't move. I can't move.
The passenger seats are not useful for fighting. However, I do think they could come in handy for a couple to do an underwater team. One person driving the Archelon because they're pretty fast and one person shooting tranks off the back. Your Archelon may fare better if it has a higher tier saddle. From my community, I have heard reports of saddles being found in purple drops and in yellow drops. In addition, I have had a friend find one in a yellow treasure chest as well. I think one of the best chances of finding a good Archelon saddle is actually in the underwater loot crates. I found this Ascendant tier blueprint in the artifact of the Cunning Cave on the island map. You will notice that your Archelon will slowly start to turn green over time. It is getting algae forming all over its body. Now you can collect the algae off the Archelon. You won't find the algae in the inventory of the Archelon. What you need to do is open up the radial menu, and on the left side you'll see collect algae. There's also a timer in there, and I'll talk more about that in just a minute. You collect the algae, it disappears off your turtle and pops into your inventory. When you look at the algae generation, it says 2 hours until algae is fully grown when the Archelon is on land. If you want to collect algae faster, what I suggest you do is head into the water. When we move it to the water, you can see that the time to collect algae halves. It's now less than an hour. So you will get more algae the more that you ride it in the water. If you have a underwater section of your base, it might be best to leave it parked in the water because you will collect algae faster that way. The spoil time of algae in your inventory is about 20 minutes after collection. You can put it in the fridge where it increases to over a day. So once you've collected, make sure that you put it in the fridge along with your other perishable items. Now, algae is one of the most new and useful things to the game. The first thing that algae does is that it is a taming food. And it's actually a preferred taming food of all the herbivore creatures in the game. Similar to what mutton does for carnivores, algae is a really high quality food, giving really good taming effectiveness just under the rates of kibble that you can feed herbivores. Now, traditionally, herbivores are fed with berries or crops. You do lose some taming effectiveness when doing this, and it does take a really long time, and often you'll need additional narcotic to keep herbivores asleep. Now, let me show you what algae does. Let's test it out. So we have an experiment here. We have knocked out 3 level 100 Ankies. Now, these are often one of the first herbivores you get in the game. In the first one, we are going to put kibble. In the second one, we will put the algae. I think you need quite a bit of it. And in the last one, we will put mijos. And it seemed to take the bite first of the algae. It hasn't taken a bite of kibble yet. Just to let you know, when doing this, this is on 1 times rate. So what we're going to do is we will fast forward the process and we'll keep a track of the taming and the torpor level over time, comparing the kibble, the algae, and the mijo berries. This Anki has finally had a bite of kibble. We're at 8.9%. The algae is at 7.1%, so it is pretty close. So we're getting closer towards the end of the tame. The berry guy is at 20%. He will definitely need narcotics. And for the algae one, this one is at 81.8%, and we are 99.3% effective. The kibble is at 88.9, and we are 99.9% effective. So it is pretty close to kibble. Okay, so the kibble Anki has tamed, and the algae Anki is at 88.9 taming and 99.2 effectiveness. So this is really good. You can see compared to the berries, and vegetables are not much more faster than berries. The berries are only at 22.7, and we've lost 5% effectiveness. So yeah, the algae is great, especially if you don't have an egg farm set up yet. This would be really, really good. You will see now that when you check your industrial cooker, if you go to consumables and crafted, there is now a new recipe, and that is algae sushi. Same thing with your cooking pot, you will see the recipe there. It describes itself as a nutritious sushi that any diner will love, which I think is the biggest and best ability of the Archelon. There is no rice in Ark, so to make the quote-unquote rice, you need to get long grass, white coloring, and serve it with the algae and raw prime fish meat. It does take quite a lot of algae. You'll also need lots of raw prime fish. So you want to have everything ready right away and get the raw prime fish last. We need the corn, we need the algae, and we can make 3 sushi here. The sushi in your inventory will spoil in about an hour. Again, if you pop it into the fridge, you have almost 4 days. So this is something to have on hand when you're going out taming, having a bunch of it ready, just in case you mess up your tames. And let me show you what we use it for. We've all been in that situation where you've found a really high level dino and you've accidentally put a shot in as it was falling asleep. When you look at your taming effectiveness, you see it's down to 85%. What you can do in this case is you can put some sushi in as well as your kibble. Hit the E key to force feed the sushi to the tame. Now what sushi does is it increases or recovers the taming effectiveness by approximately 10%. So let's go in and look at our effectiveness now. It has gone up to 98.6% effective, not all the way back to 100. There is a 5-minute cooldown on using another sushi. You can see that when we insert it into the inventory, it's counting down the seconds until you can feed it again. Doing this on 1 times rates means that we will need to feed it another sushi down the road if we want to get back up to perfect taming effectiveness. The cooldown has gone, so we are going to give it another sushi, and now you will see our taming effectiveness is at 99.9. I truly really love this feature. We've all done an accidental shot after you've knocked a creature out due to server lag, issues, or inattention. I'm a a perfectionist and I always want the best taming effectiveness, so I really love the Sushi. Let's test it out in a few other scenarios. The other situation in which the Sushi will be really helpful is if you have a team knocked out. And you can hear that a wild raptor has done a bit of damage to our team. It took a couple of bites here. We'll have to fight off the raptor. If we go and check our taming effectiveness, it has dropped down to 96.7. Now 96.7 is really not too bad, but you still might lose 1 or 2 levels. Before we had Sushi, I would have probably left this team to wake up so I could re-knock it out and tame it again. I'm that dedicated. But now that we have Sushi, we can pop a Sushi in, and our taming effectiveness is back up to 99.9. I also tested the Sushi on when you have a situation where you don't have the ideal taming food. So we have, this is 1 times rates, a Spino, and we are feeding with raw prime fish. We've got it 62% tamed. The taming effectiveness is 93.9 because we don't have the highest tiered food for the Spino. So if we feed it a Sushi, and we can take a look here, our taming effectiveness is back up to 99.9. Now this tame is only 62.5% done, so it will continue to drop a little bit more over time. But let's see if we can pop another Sushi in at the end to get a perfect tame, even though we're using non-ideal taming food. We are now at 96.2% done with the taming. Our effectiveness is dropped to 96.5, and we want to give it another Sushi kind of just before it has its last bite. Our taming effectiveness is 99.9. You can see that we managed to tame the Spino when the effectiveness was 99.7, and that is using a lot of raw prime fish meat and a lot of narcotic, but we didn't have kibble, and you're still able to get a 100% effective tame, which is kind of cool. The Sushi is really awesome. Knowing that the Archelon is a herbivore that can eat sweet veggie cake, my natural next test is to see, well, can it do a boss fight? Its damage is pretty weak, but it's pretty tanky. Also, can it be considered as a soaking dino for PvP? The first fight we're going to put the turtles into is the Gamma Broodmother. Now, these are all max level turtles with about 54 levels put into them, primitive saddles, and they've got a bunch of veggie cakes and meja berries in their inventories. Going into this fight, I'm really not sure how the Archelons will do. Their speed is incredibly bad on land, but they are really tanky in their HP, but their damage is actually really terrible. So let's see how it goes. I am riding a Yudi here to buff my turtle team. It's important to note that the boss will always target the Yudi as it is the biggest tame. I'm trying to keep the turtles between myself and the Broodmother here. Well, they're doing some damage, not a lot. All right, get in there, turtles. They're trying. I mean, they're not doing big numbers, but we haven't lost a turtle yet. I mean, it's slow going. We haven't lost a turtle yet. Oh, first Archelon's down. We lost a couple of them. Okay, the front ones are starting to go. Okay, we're losing turtles now. We're getting close to the end. I think the turtle team are gonna do it. Yeah, we did it, turtle team. All right, let's check the damage. Let's see how many turtles we lost. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The turtles honestly fared better than I thought. The Brood's kind of easy because once she's pinned, it's easier to fight her. Do I think they're able to do beta? No, I think they will get wiped as her damage increases a lot. You can see with the remaining turtles that we have, they were pretty low on HP, so I think I wouldn't use them for beyond a Gamma fight. The next fight I took the Archelons to was Gamma Megapithicus. I was a little bit more nervous about this one just because of the lack of mobility of the turtles. I left the turtles at the teleport location and used the Yudi I was riding to lure the boss over towards them. And eventually the monkey started coming over. The positioning of this was really tricky because I couldn't get the turtles to go around the side where he was more vulnerable. He just kept smacking on the front turtles while they took a lot of damage. When the turtles got pushed back, they took a long time to get back to the boss. The fight followed a fairly predictable pattern. The turtles were getting slammed, taking ages to get back, but tanking the damage pretty well. Things started going a little bit better for the turtle team when they were able to surround him more, but this is when we also started losing some of our turtles. You can see we're able to get more around him and able to do more damage. Things started looking possible for Team Turtle here. He was surrounded and his health was below halfway. The team was able to bring a large amount of his health pool down just by having him surrounded and focusing on 1 or 2 turtles. Things shifted and the fight moved face to face, so the turtles were taking a lot of front-on damage. We had no one able to attack at the sides or the back. And this is where he started to kill many of the turtles. We were losing the team really quickly. At this point, our numbers were getting really low. It looked like we had about 2 or 3 turtles left. The boss had a sliver of health. With the boss focused on me, the turtles were able to go in and finish the job. So at the end here, I think we only had 3 alive turtles and a Yudi. And the ones that were alive had an absolute sliver of health left. So are the Archelons good for this fight? Probably not, but they managed to do it by the skin of their own teeth. It could go different if you try it a second time. So the first time I fought the dragon, my footage just recorded me staring at a wall, but as you can hear, there was a fight going on. Okay, it's coming over here. What happened during that fight was all of the turtles got stuck on the ruins in the arena, and I, being on the Yudi, got targeted and died pretty quickly. So the next time I wanted to try and shake things up and have only a turtle army. I didn't have super high hopes for this fight. The turtle army is very slow going. I tried to draw them all to the center of the arena. I thought we would have the best chance if we could get the dragon surrounded. Now, I was expecting us to get melted, but what I didn't expect was for the dragon to completely ignore us. In fact, the only time the dragon showed interest in me was when I dismounted to take a shot with my shotgun. It would throw a fireball, which did quite a lot of damage to me as a player. You'll see here though, it's just hovering above the turtles. It doesn't come down to fight us. And when it did land, it didn't even come over to attack us. It just went about its business. So do you remember when I was showing the attacks on land and how that raptor ignored us? I think the dragon has similar behavior. It showed no interest in attacking the turtles. It's really hard to fight a boss that doesn't stay interested enough when it lands, and the turtle army is too slow to chase down the dragon. In fact, the dragon landed right near the army and didn't even attack, it just left them again. So I got stuck on a turtle, so I dismounted to ride another one, and that's when the dragon became interested. As soon as I hit the ground to remount a turtle, it started throwing fireballs at us, and the second one here just wiped me as a player. The turtles didn't even get a bite in. Determined to see if I could win this fight, I wanted to see if I could exploit this mechanic. If I switch to a passenger seat on a single turtle and have the dragon ignore me, can I just shoot it from the ground? Well, the answer to that is no. It did become interested when I swapped seats and melted me with fireballs. As soon as I switched to the passenger seat, the dragon became very interested and did attack, so I didn't last very long. I was really determined to see if I could make this fight win, so I had another go. Fresh new bunch of turtles and a Yudi, and this time I would say this is the best I think that this fight could go, but as you can see here, the turtles were just absolutely getting melted. And while I was fighting all of the minions that spawned, I did get fireballed, and after that it was game over. The turtle team was able to beat 2 out of the 3 gamma bosses. Now, what I wanted to test is, can they use their veggie cake healing powers and their tanky abilities to take down turret towers? I set up a little experiment with a heavy auto turret and filled it with 1,800 bullets. I wanted to see how many bullets one turtle could drain and see if they could make a good soaker. I crafted an Ascended saddle using the blueprint that we found in the cave and then sent the turtle in. So the Archelon shell actually reduces 50% of the damage incoming. Its more vulnerable pieces like the legs and the tail also do some damage reduction, and from a heavy auto turret it's about 15%. Once the turtle died, I went back to check the number of bullets in the turret, and when I went back to check, it had soaked 1,000 bullets, so it seems pretty decent. My name is Krabbytron, and I make really research-intense guides for Ark. If this is your kind of thing, subscribe to the channel for more, or if you want to see another one, click this one right here.